First off, let me just say that I am so glad that I can finally do a video on Dinesh D'Souza. It's been a long time coming, honestly, because he really wasn't on my radar like that. But after a particular tweet in which he posted, I said, yeah, I'm going to bookmark this on Twitter because I don't want to lose this. But you're probably like, Torian, that's not Dinesh D'Souza on your page or on the screen. You're right, it's not, but it starts here and then it spirals into what Dinesh D'Souza responded with. And if y'all are on Twitter, you probably know exactly where I'm headed with this, especially if you follow me, because I actually retweeted what Dinesh responded to this tweet with what I had to say. So we're going to start it off right here. So you have this person on the screen, this Twitter account named Bruce Bartlett, and he wrote the following tweet. The most important truth in American politics that no one ever talks about: half the population has an IQ below the median and the GOP represents them. Over the past generation, the parties have sorted themselves according to intelligence as well as other ways. Then he goes into a whole thread that lasts about three more tweets. And the tweets, as you can see, has pretty much gone viral, has 2.5 million views. So you can see who he was talking about when he wrote this tweet. He was talking about half the population has an IQ below the median and the GOP represents them. So I'm sure there was a lot of people who are on the quote unquote right who felt some type of way about it. And one of those people happened to be Dinesh D'Souza. And that is this tweet right here. So Dinesh wrote, virtually every IQ study over the past half century shows that blacks, who are the rock solid base of the Democratic Party, have the lowest IQ of any ethnic group, one standard deviation below whites and Asian Americans. How is this compatible with your thesis? Now keep this in mind. Bruce wrote a very vague tweet. And what I mean by that is he didn't mention anybody's race. He didn't say white, he didn't say black, he didn't say Asian, south of the Borderian, as I like to call it, or any other group that would fall into the category of those who are right-leaning. He just wrote that they have a IQ below the median, the GOP represents them. He didn't say what group in particular, he didn't specify. But somehow, some way, Dinesh managed to flip that to being about black people and the Democratic Party. Keep in mind, these are the same people who tell black people to stop bringing up race all the time, or why does everything have to be about race? So Dinesh, I ask you this question: what made you bring up black people in your response tweet to what Bruce said? Because he didn't mention race. See, this is why I titled the thumbnail the way I did. Why are you so obsessed with us? And this is not the first time Dinesh has said something about black people that wasn't true. This man, every time he mentions black people, there's always going to be a lie to come behind it. This guy has a staunch hate for black people. And to my knowledge, I believe Kid Gravity said that he had did a response to this tweet going viral. And as you can see, his tweet got 1 million more views than the initial tweet itself, excuse me, that he replied to, because people was going in on Dinesh. And I'm not just talking about just black people. I'm talking about a lot of people of different groups. Like everybody was going in on him. Like y'all should see exactly like what people were saying about him. This is how you know Dinesh D'Souza has a hatred for black people. And notice he said one standard deviation below whites, who he loves so much, and Asian, who he's like a branch off of, because you know Dinesh, he's from India. So that's like right over there. So I thought it was just very interesting that he couldn't wait to bring black people up when race wasn't even a factor in a tweet. Really, if he wanted to reply to this, he said virtually every IQ study over the past half century shows that people who are part of the Democratic Party have the lowest IQ of any group. He didn't have to bring race into it. It was so many ways he could have responded to that, but he made sure to throw black people under the bus because that's what he knows how to do best. Like if he was to go to his YouTube channel, because I believe he does have a YouTube channel. A lot of his views is whenever he's talking about black people, but that's nothing new because that's what gets pushed through the algorithm. This guy literally brought us up when he didn't have to. He chose to, as he usually does. And Harvey talks about Dinesh a lot. That's actually how I found out about Dinesh. And I always got him and Bobby Jindal mixed up because they kind of look alike and they have the same talking points and they both have the same anti-black narrative sentiment about themselves. But it's interesting that Dinesh brings all of this stuff up when it comes to black people, because I've come across some things were also sent to me concerning Dinesh and his homeland. Now check this out. This is from FBI.gov. And this is back in September 23rd, 2014. Dinesh D'Souza sentenced in Manhattan federal court to 5 years of probation for campaign finance fraud. We're going to read through this. It's not long. Trust me. Preet Bharara, the United States attorney for the Southern District of New York, announced today that Dinesh D'Souza was sentenced in Manhattan federal court to 5 years of probation, 8 months during the first year to be served in a community confinement center after having pled guilty to violating the federal campaign election law by making illegal contributions to a United States Senate campaign in the names of others. D'Souza was sentenced today before the U.S. District Judge Richard M. Berman. Manhattan U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara stated Dinesh D'Souza attempted to illegally contribute over $10,000 to a Senate campaign, willfully undermining the integrity of the campaign finance process. Like many others before him of all political stripes, he has had to answer for this crime, here with a felony conviction. According to the indictment, prior court filings, and statements made in court, the Federal Election Campaign Act, or the Election Act, is designed to limit financial influence in the election of candidates for federal office, including the office of United States Senator, and provides for the public disclosure of the financing in federal election campaigns. In particular, the Election Act limits the amount and source of money that may be contributed to a federal candidate and that candidate's authorized campaign committee. The Election Act specifically prohibits any person from making any contribution in the name of another, including reimbursing a third person before or after that third person's contribution as inducement to make that contribution. In 2012, the Election Act limited campaign contributions to $5,000 from any individual to any one candidate. In March 2012, D'Souza contributed $10,000 to the Senate campaign of Wendy Long on behalf of himself and his wife, agreeing in writing to attribute that contribution as $5,000 from his wife and $5,000 from him. In August 2012, D'Souza directed other individuals with whom he was associated, namely his assistant and a woman with whom D'Souza was romantically involved, the straw donors, to make contributions to Wendy Long's campaign for the United States Senate, the Long campaign, on behalf of themselves and their spouses that totaled $20,000, with the promise that he would reimburse them for contributions. Later that same day or the next day, D'Souza, as promised, reimbursed the straw donors $10,000 each in cash for the contributions. When confronted by Ms. Long, D'Souza initially misled the candidate before admitting what he had done. During the plea proceeding, D'Souza admitted before the court that he caused two close associates to contribute $10,000 each to the Long campaign, with the understanding that he would reimburse them for their contributions and that he did reimburse them. D'Souza also admitted that he knew what he was doing was wrong and something the law forbids. In addition to the probationary term with confinement to a community center, Judge Berman sentenced D'Souza, age 53 at the time, of San Diego, California, to pay a mandatory 8-hour day of community service every week of his 5-year term of probation, weekly counseling sessions, and order him to pay a $30,000 fine as well as a $100 special assessment. Judge Berman previously denied D'Souza's pretrial motion to dismiss the indictment for selective prosecution, ruling that there was no evidence to support D'Souza's allegation. In sentencing D'Souza, Judge Berman referred to his prior ruling and remarked that the defendant's claim of selective prosecution, legally speaking, is that it all had no cattle. Mr. Bharara praised the investigative work of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This case is being prosecuted by the office's Public Corruption Unit Assistant United States Attorneys Kerry H. Cohen and Paul M. Krieger are in charge of the prosecution. So there you have it right there. And that was back in 2014. Now, if his probationary period lasted for 5 years, so you're talking about it ended around September of 2019, which is not long ago. So when you think about it, he just got off of probation about 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago. And he has the nerve to sit up there and talk about us. This is public knowledge right here. This guy is a convicted felon. Even if he did only do probation, if he only got probation, he's still on the books a convicted felon, because he pled guilty, and he actually got if you want to call, I don't even want to call it a punishment, he got a consequence. I always put consequence below punishment. He got a consequence for the crime in which he committed. But he wants to sit up there and talk about black people and talk down on us all day. But that's not all, y'all, because I got sent some more things about, well, not so much about Dinesh, but more about where he's from. Shout out to one of my followers on Twitter, and most likely a subscriber of the channel, for sending me this stuff. I'm going to show y'all 4 things. So you know how they like to talk about our IQ and talk about low IQ. At least that's what Dinesh put out there. Check this out. And this is coming off of a website called applerouth.com, unpacking the August SAT cheating scandal, August 2018. And it says the College Board and ACT Incorporated have to start recycling tests. It's that simple. Earlier this week, news broke that the August SAT contained questions that it sounds like, if you continue reading on, that they were using old tests to give to people so they could pass them. You can pretty much guess who they gave that to. Next one. This is off of Reuters from 2015. Asian students cram for SATs with bootleg tests. And this is coming out of Hong Kong. You know, this is a group that Dinesh, he's a branch of, but he was also big upping in that tweet while he was throwing us under the bus. Next one. Cheating confirmed on SAT given in Asia, November 24th, 2014, which is also the same year that he was found guilty or pled guilty to his crimes, which was 2 months prior to this coming out. And this one, 90% of Indian startups will fail because of lack of innovation. This is off of Forbes, May 18th, 2017. But again, he sits up there and say how we are low IQ'd, Asians and whites are better, and so on and so forth. And again, that's all he really likes to do, is to try to, quote unquote, go after us for whatever reason or another. I don't know what we did to this man. I don't know him from a can of paint. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know any of it. He probably doesn't even live around black people, but he has so much to say about us. That's why I wish we could always get to the root of why is it that you talk about us? Why are we always in your mouth? Why are we always on your mind? Did a black person do something to you years ago and you have a gripe with it? I'm like this: if you got a gripe with that person, you need to find that person, take it up with them, because we didn't do nothing to Dinesh. So I don't know what it is, but honestly, and this is what I believe, is because it's trendy. It's trendy to go after and attack black people because that is what sounds good at the time. That's what brings you clicks, and that's what brings you views. So of course, I'm going to hop on the bandwagon and do that as well. And it's funny that he talks about how we're so low IQ, but he is not talking about a lot of the black kids that get millions of dollars in scholarships, or talk about those 2 siblings, the one that graduated at the age of 14, I believe, and the other one that graduated at 13. I talked about it in one of my live streams. So y'all probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's Dinesh D'Souza in a nutshell. That's him in a nutshell. For those of y'all who never knew who Dinesh D'Souza was, y'all got a nice little introduction to him via this video. And trust me, it's not a good one.